Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today's video is part of the Happy Hearts YouTube blog hop, and I'm using some new products from them, including these adorable little love potion jars. I showed you this cover plate, but I didn't end up using it. These potion jars are back from the fall release, and this Believe is honestly even older than that. But that's okay because we're going to put them all together to make a card. So here, there's 2 love potion jars in the set. But I like to do things in odd numbers. So I pulled one of the jars from the previous set. They do work really well together, as do the labels. So you could kind of mix and match them. I'm stamping in our Intense Black ink because I am going to be doing some coloring with my alcohol markers. Please feel free to use whatever medium you would like. Because I've never stamped these 2 new ones before, I did end up stamping them twice. And then we're just going to move right on into the coloring. So the first thing that I wanted to show you, I just went in with a C1 so I could show you. You could really add very minimal coloring to this and still get a pretty great result because of how well these stamps are illustrated. So honestly, I'm just going to go in and lay a little bit of shadow into the body of it. So that way you can see just how it shapes the jar. And even if you did really nothing else but this on the inside, like it still gives them dimension, which is crazy because it's only just one marker and it's a very, very light gray. But so you can just see how we're kind of going to give them some shape. I am going to follow these with my other coloring as well. A lot of colors, not just gray. So I thought that it would be super cute. When I was looking at the labels, one of them says fairy dust. And I was like, sold, fairy dust. That should be like glittery and iridescent. Which is kind of how I came up with the concept for the video. So if you watch my videos before, you know when we're talking about blending color families, if you want to blend one, this is true of Copic markers, okay? If you want to blend one family into another, so like pink into purple into blue, you know how we're doing here, you want to look at your second number. So that is the one that is going to matter, and you just want to keep them relatively close. So I used an RV02, a V01, a B02, a YG01, a Y02, and then I used a YR02, and I'm going to be honest, if I had to do it over again, like it worked, but if I had to do it over again, I would probably go with the YR00, just to make it a little bit easier. And then I'm just going to keep going over these. Don't stress if when you first put it down, they don't blend right away. You have to wait for some of that moisture to evaporate to get the true kind of color of what you're going to have. And you could do this anyway. You could do this vertical, you could do it horizontal like I did. You could kind of do it a little bit more randomly. But I just thought it would be fun to have kind of this rainbow fairy dust that looked a little glittery. Just because I think it would be pretty. That was pretty much it. I love all the sparkly things. So this is one of the ways, and it's the most complicated way that we're going to talk about adding glitter. And that is coloring it. And so I put down my base layer, and then I'm going to go in with just a slightly darker. So I used an RV02 as my base. I'm using an RV04 to do my stippling. I used a V01 for my base. I'm using a V04 for my stippling, so on and so forth. And each time, stippling is just a series of small dots. This is going to give us the look of the glitter. This didn't work as well as if I would have done it with one color because you get multiple tones. But it did work enough that I feel like it looks like a little bottle of glittery fairy dust. But when you're putting them down, you want to not only go over the color that you have, so like blue over blue, yellow over yellow, but you want to expand them out a little bit into the colors that are next to them. So that way everything is blending really nicely. I guess I don't know any other way to explain it. If you only put the dots in the concentration of just that color, you're not going to create the gradient for the stippling that's required to get the look of the glitter. This R05 is a little bit strong. It's a little stronger than some of the other ones. And so you'll see me kind of have to work it a little bit more. I go back over it with the Y08. And then again, in order to get that dimension and the variation that I'm trying to achieve so that it will look like glitter, I will go back in with my base layer colors, so the lighter colors, and then do the stippling over top of the darker ones. Again, completely like going out just a little bit past, so the purple will go into the pink and into the blue will go into the purple and into the green. You get the point of what I'm saying. This really comes together after all the coloring is done and we add the white gel pen. So right now it looks pretty cool and pretty textured, and it's blending, you know, like this happy little rainbow, and I'm not mad at it. But in order to really make it look like it is glittering, we have to add the white gel pen, which we will do a little bit further down the line because we'll be adding white gel pen to a lot of things, quite honestly. So I did the rainbow center first, and now I'm going to go in and do the shading to my actual bottle. I went back and forth about whether or not I wanted to do them like gold or, you know, a specific color, and ultimately I decided to just do them just grays, which will give the appearance that the bottles are clear or white. And the reason that I chose to do this is because I wanted the colors of the potions to kind of stand out on their own. I had a completely different vision for how this card was going to go when I first started it. I did not foresee the way that this was going to be, but nonetheless, I don't know that I'm like, this is the best card I ever made, but I'm not, like, I don't hate it either. I think it's a little bit fun, and I think the techniques are worth sharing with you. So, adding the shading to the bottle, I'm just adding the shadows. So I am going in, and any point where two objects meet or where one object lays on top of each other, you're going to have shadows. I also added shadows like to the top of the bottle, to the top and the bottom of that lid portion to give it a more round appearance. For the actual body of the bottle, I like around the heart, I added shading on the outside of those black lines. So you have like the outline of the stamp, and then there's these little inside, they're not complete lines. It's almost like a frame. I'm going on just to the outside of the frame, but on the inside of the bottle. And then just kind of blending these back out towards the lightest color. If you're heavy-handed like I am, feel free to start with your lightest color, but I felt pretty confident going in here with where I was going to lay my shadows that I wasn't too worried and didn't feel like I needed to start with my lightest color. Though I will say, in adding my darkest color, my marker was barely touching the paper. When I mean the tip of it was touching, it is so very barely touching the paper. So you should not have your marker smushed down. You shouldn't even be able to see it be pressed. It should be held very lightly in your hand and just kind of dragged across that line. We're not putting down a ton of pigment because we're trying to conserve that highlight. So for this bottle, I'm doing the same exact thing. I'm just going to add some more shading more towards the bottom of the bottle, because where it comes out, like where it's would be rounded on the edges, that would catch a little bit more light. So I have some darker shading up top and then some darker shading on the bottom. Also, I just followed the illustrator's lines for the top portion, which, how pretty are these? Like, seriously, these bottles, like, I would love to have these on my vanity. They're beautiful. But I just followed the lines that they had given there, and that's where I added those shadows to. And again, just working out towards my lightest color. If you're like, I super love these potion bottles, these are fantastic, I want to use them 100 different ways, I did show a whole video on several different ways to color the bottles back in the fall. So I will link to that at the end of this video if you're super interested in that and different ways that you can color them or different looks that you can get from them. So once the outside of the bottle is done, then I'll go ahead and add in the inside. This is super, it's just super easy coloring. Basically, you're just going to make the outside edges darker than the inside. That's really all that I did. So I filled it in with my lightest color. And then I, added in some shading from the left, right hand sides as well as the bottom to just get a little bit more depth. And honestly, I'm going to be honest. So I struggle with adding these labels. I think these labels are adorable and they're super cute, but like I colored these bottles and then I put this label on there and it like covers up part of my coloring, and I'm like, do I really want these labels? Should I just stamp them flat? And honestly, in the other video I was just telling you about, I did end up just stamping them flat because I didn't want to cover up all of the stuff all of the stuff I colored. So that is also an option if you are not interested in being able to pop up the labels over top. And then I ran into an issue with the love label, but we'll talk about that when we get there. So anywho, this is part of Video Hop. Now that we're 10 minutes into it and you've probably given up. It is part of a Video Hop. Honeybee is very generously doing a giveaway. So if you just stumbled on to my video because you follow my channel, I would encourage you to hop along. They're giving away 2 $50 gift cards through January 21st. So you have plenty of time to comment. They're also doing like an Instagram hop and all kinds of stuff where you can win some gift cards to go over and check out their new release, which is really fantastic. I had such a super hard time trying to like pinpoint what it was that I wanted to work with because I liked so many of the things. I did want to note here, you saw I'm using like 6 colors to color this in. For most of these, that is completely not necessary. It's the pinks, like that is what it is. The pinks are so difficult to blend. And you're going to see here in just a minute when I go in with the RV02 how much it lightens up everything else around it. It just like bleaches those other colors out. And because it does that, it takes a little bit more finesse and sometimes a little more in between colors to get them to blend. When I do the blue bottle, like we were going to get away without a blue potion, right? When I do the blue bottle, I only use 4 colors, same as usual, just because the pinks are just so challenging. They just are. And I love them. I love them. I use them all the time. You have to accept that that's one of their properties going into it and be okay with that. With that said, I probably could have left out the RV19. So I probably could have used an RV02, a 4, a 6, a 9, and then the 69 and been okay. The 19 probably was not needed. I did need the 6 though, and originally I had left that one out. So we talked about the Video Hop. We talked about the coloring. This one will be no different. I'll be coloring this one the same as the pink one. Originally, I wasn't going to take the blue all the way up to the tippy top, but then I decided that I was going to. I just felt like I didn't have a whole lot of color in this card, and I needed these bottles to kind of be the most that they could be so that the color would really show up in this card. So the last time that we talked about me not prioritizing my time correctly, and so I kind of have a funny story. It's funny, but it's heartwarming. Let's see if we can fit it in. So you guys know that like typically my husband and I try to split up when we're like divide and conquer, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so we try to make it so one person isn't doing all of the things. And I just happened to have a week where it just was not my week. This was a couple of weeks ago. And in fact, it was right when we were going back to school after Christmas break. And I think that's why, because I just wasn't like really in the swing of things. So it was my day to take Miss Caitlin to daycare. I drop her off on the way to taking our son to school. So I pack the kids up. We always get out of the house late. There's always just something that is forgotten, that is missed, that is whatever it is. There's a secondary diaper change. I thought I had a pair of pants that fit and I don't. There is, I forgot my book bag. There's no ice pack for my lunchbox. There's chaos every morning. And so I was running a little bit late getting her to where she needed to be, and then I have to combat. Now listen, I appreciate this woman. She loves my child. I love her for loving my child. She is fantastic. But she also works from home just like I do. So sometimes in the morning when I'm dropping Caitlin off and I need to leave because I have to take Peanut to school, she is chatty, my daycare lady. And I'm like, but I have to leave. Like, I don't want to be rude because I wasn't raised that way. But also, I have places to go. So this one day in particular, I was running behind, and the place that I have to, like the driveway that I have to pull out of. Let's go back to the card real quick. So here I'm just going in and I'm adding my little white highlights with my gel pen along the bottles. And then I'm also going to do those stippling white dots over the rainbow to make them the glitter sparkly goodness that I want them to be. So the driveway that I have to pull out of it's a mess. There's always traffic. I'm trying to make a left-hand turn, which already makes me crazy. And I look at the clock and it is 8:22. Now, I have to have my child there, this time at a different time than normal because he had something else going on. But I'm trying to get my child there by 8:30. I have 8 minutes to accomplish this. And I'm like, okay, like, it is what it is. Sometimes it just works out that way. So I finally get to make my left. I go down. I have to make another left. I have to wait through traffic for that. I get stuck behind somebody who's going super slow, and like, it is what it is. I'm getting aggravated. I'm getting frustrated because I know I'm running late. This is nobody's fault but my own. I am consciously aware of that. But I'm like getting frustrated. I get caught by a red light. It just like my whole demeanor is like, this is terrible. And I am mad about it. And so we pull in at 8:32. We're late. It is what it is. I give him a hug and a kiss. He goes and does his thing. And I go on with my day. Starting to get slightly irritated. The very next day, I am also late getting out of the house, taking both of the kids. Just so we're clear. It's the next day. Nothing's changed. And so I take Caitlin, I drop her off, I get into the car, and I am pulling out of the same driveway, and I look at the clock, and it is again 8:22. And I was like, man, I thought I would be able to just be a little bit better about it. I thought I would be able to save some time today, but it's not. It is what it is. And so I'm sitting there and I'm waiting forever to make my left-hand turn, and I'm waiting longer than I did yesterday. And I can feel myself getting aggravated about it again. And like, I was talking to Peanut, he's in, the back seat. And I told him, I was like, you know what, buddy? Like, it just is what it is. Like, I just have to accept it for it is what it is. Like, I can't let it ruin my whole day. And like, it's up to God what time we get there. And maybe he's got a plan that I don't know anything about. And so I'm just going to trust that if we're meant to get there on time, we will get there on time. And if we are not, then we will not. And it's going to be what it's going to be. And he was like, okay, Mom, whatever you say. Because he's not real philosophical, mine. But so then I am waiting forever. I finally get to make my left-hand turn. I'm running later than I was yesterday. And I get stuck behind a bus, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right, just like, Lord, it is what it is. I'm a bit, after hearing after 9/11, I remember reading an article where there were people who was like, it was my turn to stop and get donuts, and that's the only reason why I wasn't there. My alarm didn't go off, and that's the only reason why I wasn't there. Like, I try to remind myself that you are exactly where God wants you to be. Wherever that is, whether you agree or not, whether you are frustrated about it or mad about it, or you've accepted it, or you're happy about it, like, you are where you are supposed to be. Let's go back to the card. So here, I've just trimmed these down, and I'm going to run them all through my little bitty buzz cutter here. This is super handy to have like right on my desk. The only thing I think, it was the cover plate, but I didn't end up using the cover plate. The cover plate I would have had to use a bigger one for, but everything else I was able to die cut with my bitty buzz cutter. So Like, I just am a firm believer. Sometimes I forget that and I get aggravated about it because I want to be where I want to be. I don't want my child to ever be like, I'm always late because of my mom. So anyway, we get stuck behind a bus. We're stuck behind a slow driver. We're way further behind than we were the day before. Stuck by another red light. We have to go back to the card. I'm sorry. So here, I really wanted to put the love die on this little pink one. But it did not fit. It's meant for the bigger one, but I still wanted to use it. And so I modified my label. What I did was I used the die for the one in the blue, like that little wishes die. I used it to cut out the love one. And then I held the die in place. Now I could have stamped it, but I was scared that I wouldn't be able to stamp it on the die that was on the die cut that was so small. So I actually held it in place and then I traced around to get my black edge. Yes, there is stamping on the outside. I don't know that that's that big of a deal. But I did modify this just so that I could get it on the teenier, tinier bottle and I would still have my little love on my pink little potion. I wanted my love potion and I wasn't taking no for an answer. And then I'm going to start adhering all of these things together and then we will work on the background of the card. And that's our next sparkle. So anyway, we get stopped by the school zone. It's all bad. None of it's going to be good. And we're getting ready to pull into the school parking lot. And I look down and it is 8:29. Now, yesterday, when I was aggravated and I was frustrated with it and I had not accepted it, I was 2 minutes later and I had more things that were in my way, more things that should have been a delay this time, and I made it in 7 minutes. Because I know that it is. I know that is the reason. Because I was just like, okay, Lord, it's in your hands. I'm done with it. It is what it is. I'm not going to be mad about it. I'm not going to let it set the tone for my day. Wherever you want me to be is where I'm going to be. And we made it on time. So, anywho, that was my little antidote for today. That sometimes I think and to me, I literally told my son, I was like, that was a miracle. And he was like, what? And I was like, that was a miracle. That was a miracle because I should not have been able to make it on time. I should not have been. And here we are on time. And so I think a lot of times, we look at it as, somebody falls into a cavern and lives for 6 days off a random bag of Doritos that happened to be left behind. And we're like, oh my gosh, that's a miracle. And it is. I don't know if that's ever actually happened. I just made that up. But there are so many other things going on in life that are just these little everyday miracles that we take for granted and don't pay attention to, that I just wanted to acknowledge mine because I genuinely appreciated it. I genuinely appreciated being able to get there on time. So here I have these laid in place because I need to very quickly do my stamping. So I lined up my sub sentiment, which says believe in the magic. I thought that was super cute. That believe stamp set is probably a little bit geared more towards Christmas, but it doesn't have to be. And then these little sparkles, yes, sparkles, are included in the potion labels stamp set. And I'm going to use them to kind of create this floating, swirling sparkle in the background, up from these bottles. And so there's two of them. There's a larger one and a smaller one. I'm stamping in our Brilliant White Pigment ink because I'm going to white heat emboss all of this. So once I have all of my sparkles stamped, then I'm going to sprinkle on some white detail embossing powder. That's also going to get my little sub sentiment, and then I will heat set that. With that being said, you could totally leave this as it is, or you could do a similar effect with a white gel pen. You don't even need the stamp. I think the stamp makes it easier, but you don't need it. You could draw your own little stars and dots. And so to further get this look that I am going for, I will be adding my own dots. Now, I needed something for my potions to sit on, and since I did a black background, I decided to do some white at the bottom. And then in order to tie in that charcoal gray that is like the shadow of my believe, I just did a really thin strip of that colored cardstock across the top, just to kind of tie everything together. It's not really needed for anything, just for consistency, basically. So I put my little strip in, and then I am going to adhere all of my things. I could have popped them up on foam tape. I chose not to. I chose to just adhere them down flat, mostly because I'm pretty much over foam tape this week. So that's where I'm at. So once I get these all glued down, of course, you guys know how I feel about letting things just kind of float out in midair, even though they're magic, and maybe they could float. I don't know, but I'm going to ground them because that's what I like. So I put all of these into place, and then I'm going to use those same cool grays to just create a shadow underneath them so that they're not, like I said, just floating in space. You guys are going to have to share with me what you think. I don't know how I feel about, like, I've been doing more darker backgrounds, and normally I would have like ink blended this, but I really wanted the sparkle to kind of be the star. And I don't know how I feel about a solid black background with white on it. There's a lot of contrast. Like, there's a lot going on in the background. And before, when I have said like, oh, I feel like maybe that's too busy, you guys have been like, no, it's not. So you tell me, is this too busy? We're not there yet. But how we're going to further, like, you can do the little stars for your sparkle with the stamp. You can draw your own. We've covered that. In order to get the swirls, I am going to, I'm also going to color the white edges. Sorry, I keep forgetting about things that I've done. So I did color all of the edges. For the black background, I colored them black, and then any parts that kind of overlapped, I added the gray or the pink or the blue, whatever, because I don't like the white die cut background. That's just me. Everybody's different. If you're fine with it, then leave it. That's totally okay. But I got rid of it. Now we're on to the adding of the sparkles. So I wanted it to look like it was like this, swirly magic floating up from these potions. And so I extended what was given to me by the stamp with my white gel pen, just by doing a small series of dots. Maybe I went a little overboard, not 100% positive. I don't know. I think it's kind of fun. So I also could have done the whole background. I've done that before with like snow, with a white gel pen and just put in a series of dots. It's just something different, a different way to add sparkle. You don't necessarily have to do it, to potion jars. You could do it to other things, and it would be very cute. The last way I'm going to add sparkle is honestly like the most common sense, and that's using stickles. This is Stardust stickles because those are my favorite. But I just did, again, like I filled in the stars that were stamped, and then I did some more small dots. And then like this is just, adding sparkle, adding glitter, glitter glue to me makes sense. So that's just a third way you can do it. I did not use my glitter shimmer pen this time around, but that's definitely another way that you could add it. And then just for like a little added extra dimension, a little added shine, I did use this lacquer pen from Hero Arts just to like kind of go over those white highlights that I had previously drawn, just to give them some actual shine in real life. And then that is it. That is the whole card. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate your time as always. I hope that you will continue hopping along and head over and check out the new Honeybee release. I appreciate your time. I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.